Shavua Tov, everybody. We're going to try to do a marathon. We're going to try to fit in fragments of pieces that kind of skip the recordings. So we're going to pick up. This is a piece that has. It's in the 6 days of creation, and it's Shabbos. It's the beginning of Shabbos, and the pasuk is. That's what we say at Kiddush Friday night. So there was a discussion in this piece. It raised the question that if God stopped doing all the things that He did during the 6 days of creation, so how can we say, we all know that on Shabbos we experience creation, meaning on a regular Shabbos it could rain, the grass grows. It's not like God abstains from melacha on Shabbos. He still does what He did during the 6 days. So the Alshech wanted to explain that there's a qualitative difference, meaning it's not the things that He did during the 6 days that He doesn't do on Shabbos. It's that each of those, all the things that He did during the first 6 days were a chidush, they were novelty. He created something. It was the first time. He doesn't do first time creation anymore. But those things that were done, right, to continue doing them now, that's not considered a violation of God resting and cessation from that which He did during the 6 days. Okay, so for example, he brings a chazal that there was somebody that asked a Jewish sage, how could God make it rain on Shabbos? Because we know that it's forbidden to carry from one domain to another. If Hashem keeps the Shabbos, how can He take rain from the upper worlds or the atmosphere and bring it down to earth? The verse says, "Hashamayim shemayim laHashem," the heavens are to God, "Ve'aretz natan levnei adam," but the earth He gave to man. So there's two separate domains. So how does God carry from one domain to the other? So the rabbi answered, well, really, the whole world is God's domain, so He's not taking it out from one place to another. For Him, it's all the same. So the Alshech said, excuse me, the Alshech HaKadosh, Amen, thank you. So the Alshech HaKadosh said that would suffice for that particular phenomenon of making it rain. But what about all the other stuff? God makes the grass grow. So he said, you have to understand. Amen. The words that God ceased His workings of the 6 days to mean that He just, what He did during the first 6 days was they were all initial creative acts. There was nothing like this was done before. So the fact that the first time that the earth sprung grass, right, that doesn't mean that subsequently it's a violation of Shabbos or a violation of this idea that God won't do it again for grass to grow. It's just that it's not that He made the grass grow during the first week. It's that He created a reality which expressed itself in the grass growing. Okay, that was the approach in the Alshech HaKadosh, and we're going to pick up. Okay, V'shem Tomar. Maybe you will say, Imken, if this is true, Lama b'man hechen miyom hashishi liyom haShabbat v'lo himtir man b'Shabbat. We know that one of the ways Rashi brings down that Shabbos was blessed was that there was extra man that came down on Yom Shishi for Shabbos, right? Because God did not bring the man on Shabbos. So the question is, what would be so terrible about God giving the man on Shabbos? How would this be a violation if we just established that God doesn't have to cease from continuing the world to operate on Shabbos for Him to keep Shabbos? Why does the Torah make a big deal that God did not? Why did God dafka not bring the man on Shabbos? L'zeh amar la'olam emalach she'en kapeda b'zeh. To this, we will say that really forever there's no problem with God making it rain man on Shabbos. He's not insistent against this. Ashatira asiti baman enosh lo haya ro'i lehasot b'Shabbos. It's not that act of making the man come down on Shabbos would have been unworthy for Shabbos. Ella, rather, shavayivarech, that God blessed God blessed Shabbos. It was a special blessing for Shabbos. The fact that the food of Shabbos was given from the day before, it was to express, to manifest, for everybody to understand that there was an extra blessing with Shabbos. That the measure of man that was accorded to each skull was doubled on Shabbos. It was a lechem mishnah. Afilu haloket omer echad nasa shnayim. Even somebody who only bothered to pick up one measure, it would turn into two. Shema shelo himtir b'Shabbat hu kivaya kadashoto. So the fact that God does not rain it down on Shabbos was to show that God had sanctified it. Ki asad laman yavchinu v'yakiru kiddushat Shabbat. That God acted differently regarding Shabbat so that people should be aware of its special standing and its sanctity. Lilmod heim lahafrish ben Shabbat l'chol. That the creatures would understand, they would learn to separate from the reality of the weekday to the reality of Shabbos. Achlo kilapei mala, but regarding God, there was no difficulty in acting that. It wasn't like it would be a violation of malacha. V'atam sheish hefresh b'masa bereshit l'masha osa yitbarach achrechen. And regarding the reason why there is a distinction that God made from the workings of creation, the initial week, and what God continues to do subsequent, like the continued sprouting of grass and things of that nature. Perish, the verse explained, the Amar, and it said, Kivo shavat kel mikol melachto. Because on that day God rested from all his work. Kilomar, ma shebo shavat, hu mikol melachto asher bar Elohim biyom rishon kedei la'asot b'shar hayamim kakatuv lamala. Okay, one second. I need a chumash for this. Okay, so inside, one more time, it says, "Vayichudu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chol tzva'am." Thus, the heaven and the earth were finished, and all their array. Vayichal Elohim bayom hashvi'i melachto asher asa. By the seventh day, God completed his work which he had done. Vayishbos bayom hashvi mikol melachto asher asa. And he abstained on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Vayivarach Elohim es yom hashvi vaykadesh oso. And God blessed the seventh day and he sanctified it. Kivo, because on that day, Shavas, he rested mikol melachto from all his work. Asher bara Elohim lasos, from all his work which God created to make. So it sounds like a lot of superfluous, kind of, on the face of it, extra words. So over here, the Alshech HaKadosh is saying that at the end it says, Kivo Shavas Mikol Melachto, because on that day he rested from all his work. Asher Bara, that Elokim created, La'asot, in order to do. Why do you have Asher Bara, that God created? That was on Yom Rishon. Kedei la'asot b'shar hayamim, in order to do in subsequent days. Meaning that God, the pasuk is saying directly that God, that which he does on the 6 days of creation is meant to follow subsequently, la'asot, continuously. However, the quality of their initiation, which was experienced on the sixth day, that God rested from. Okay? Everything. Okay, so the Alshech HaGadosh has the approach that he led us with throughout the whole Bereshis is that really on some sort of, even if it's the most ethereal, slightest expression, everything was created on some level in a primordial way from the first moment of creation, and then subsequently it emanated to become more and more developed and more concretized and more expressed and manifest. Okay? Ki hakol nivra b'rishon, everything was created on the first day. Ela shaheh b'dakut, but it was very slight. Vayotze kol prat mehabriya davar yom b'yomo. And God would extract every detail from that initial creation, each thing on its appropriate day. Bazeh bilvad hu sheshav asu yitbarach. That activity is what God ceased to partake of on Shabbos. Shehashlosha dvarim shel Shabbos asa b'shishi. That the three things that pertains specifically to Shabbos, he did specifically on Yom Shishi, on the sixth day. Anything that God did not create in order that he would continue to do himself, rather that he encoded in nature that it should do itself, like for example the earth is now prepared to sprout forth, and that the heavens would rain down their dew, D-E-W. That is not considered God doing melacha, work on Shabbos. Even if everything is being managed and under the watchful care of God, still those things that are meant to be encoded automatically from their initial onset, that is not God's workings like we talked about during the 6 days. Okay. O Yomar, alternatively, it says Vayishbot, and he rested. Lomar, Halo tir'eh ki hu oseh shamayim chadashim ve'eretz chadasha, kimo she'amru zal, ki ka'asher hashamayim chadashim ve'eretz chadasha. There is a verse in Isaiah that says, just like the new heavens and the new earth. So, behold, do we see that God continues to make the heavens and the earth new? Asher asiti, and yet the verse says, Asher asiti, that I had made. I'm sorry, the verse does not say, Asher asiti, that I made, Ella asher ani oseh, that I continuously make. Melamed, this teaches us, this verse in Isaiah, shetamid oseh, that God constantly does, latet tzchai tov latzadikim, in order to give good reward to the tzadikim. There's a Mishnah in Avot that says that why did God make the world in 10 utterances when he could have just said in one? Mm-hmm. So the cryptic answer is to give punishment to the wicked that violate the 10, that they stand at odds with those 10 utterances, and to give good reward to the tzaddikim that establish the 10. Meaning the tzaddikim justify the creation, and therefore it's not just one statement. As if God wanted to give them a lot of credit, so he cut up the creation of the world in 10 statements, so that when the Rishayim violate the world, they're violating a full set of 10, and they're going to be punished for it. And when the tzaddikim uphold it, they're upholding 10 utterances, so they're going to be. That's on the face of it. That's hard to understand. But over here, this is a reference to the fact that, meaning we understand the verse saying that God is constantly creating the world to mean that God is sustaining the world in reward for the righteous who are sustaining the world. Mm. So he's saying it's not really, right? But then, meaning, according to the simple understanding, even on Shabbos, God is, right, we say, HaMechadesh b'tuvo b'chol yom tamid, that God is constantly renewing creation, that every moment, God is willfully, consciously willing the world into being. So that means that God is generating existence on Shabbos too. L'zeh amar, therefore the verse says, Vayishbot Elohim, dafka mikom malachto asher asa. God rested from all the work that he did. But not from any work that he would have to do afterwards, meaning the maintenance, which is the constant generation. Hashamayim achadashim, those new heavens that reappear every time, that's different than when God initially made them during the first week. Even now, so you see that even on Shabbos, God blesses the seventh day that there should be new light, a new spiritual light that's manifest on Shabbos. Vayikadesh also, and he sanctified it, b'shefa, with an influx of divine bounty, shehishbia bo, that he rained down, ka'amor lamal, like we explained above. Ela shehu davar ruchani, but this is all on a spiritual level. Ve'ina nikret melacha lishbot mimena. So all these ideas that we just mentioned are really all qualitatively on the level of spiritual and not on the level of physical, and therefore that's the distinction in this paragraph that the Alshech wants to make, that even if there is a constant level of creation active by God subsequent to Shabbos, that's on a spiritual level that is different, that the Pasuk delineates between the malacha of the Chiddush and the malacha of in the Olam Asiyah, Asher Asa, that's ultimately manifest physically. Okay. Vishema Tomar, perhaps you will say, Kigam hinekret melacha pula. No, even on that level, that's also called God working. Kamadat Amar, like the verse in Tehillim says, Pa'alta lachosim bach, that it's talking about the worlds that God created to those who aspire to Him, to yearn for Him, and it's talking on a spiritual level, and yet the verse uses the verb, Pa'alta, you have made, it sounds like that's the kind of verb you would use in the physical realm. So the Alshech HaKadosh says, Eino dome, it is not comparable. Ki ma shebo shavas, that which God abstained from on the seventh day, mikol melachto, it's all His work, asher bara Elohim, that God had created, kidei la'asot, in order, a domain to be engaged in on the physical level of Asiyah. Shehu ha'olam hazeh, that is this world. Shebra'o yitbarach liot olam ha'maseh. We're talking about the physical realm that creatures have agency in. That is something that's precluded in the pasuk from God's creation. That means that there is no active creation that goes on the level that impacts, that we see here, rather on a spiritual level where God is maintaining reality. V'zeh amro la'asot, that's what the verse is adding when it has the word la'asot, meaning to be done, to be manifest in the world of asiyah, in the material world of action. Shehu, that is, kidei la'asot bo b'nei adam ma'aseh, a domain that the children of man can have agency in. She'en kein, alternatively, meaning as opposed to, in contrast, asher ani oseh, that God says, the domain that I work in, levilti asot, where that is not called the domain of asiyah, because humans don't do the asiyah over there, that's God's asiyah. Rak lanuach ulekabel schar, rather it is a domain of rest for the human being, for rest and to receive reward, shehu olam ruchani, which is a spiritual world. Okay?